Awesome. So it started recording. Hi, everybody. Good evening and welcome to another Asha session. My name is Osaz and I'm community manager here at Ashokutori. And I'm going to also be serving as the anchor MC compare for today's session. Uh, yeah, thank you all for making it a date with us even today. We have an awesome person who is going to just be taking over soon, and I know you're all excited to have her here. So without further ado, I'm just going to let Adaeze introduce herself and tell us what she does. So please, again, while the session is ongoing, please let's endeavor to keep our microphones off and also keep our cameras off so that we can really just focus, and it will also help with the quality of the video at the end of the day when we are editing it and posting to YouTube. So Ada, thank you so much for coming around. Good to have you here.
Thank you, Osat. Hi, guys. Good evening. My name is Adaeze Victoria. You can call me CMB. People should stop calling me Ma. I'll say it now. 20 people that are here, let me say it. People should stop calling me Ma. My name is Adaeze. You can call me Ada. Call me CMV. Right? That's who I am. I do many things. I do content creation, digital marketing, somehow. A sprinkle of digital marketing. Let me not lie. I don't know it's finished. Just small. I do graphic design, motion graphics, copywriting, photography. Opo, it's just plenty. Sure, you understand? Yeah, because man must chop. So anywhere that belly left phrase is front for me. So that's what I do. I'm a creative designer at our path, lead director, CAV Digital, even though we know it's just me and a few other people that are on my team. There are not many like that. Mhm. So yeah, that's basically all there is to me. Oh. I'm not past like this. That's what you're seeing, what you're getting. Mhm. So what I'm basically here to speak about today is the art of storytelling. And there's anything I can do is weave that thing like thread, like braid, and tell stories in a very interesting manner, right? That's what I do. That's what I love to do. I read about it, I learned about it. I didn't go to any formal school for it. I just, it's just something I picked along the way. I like to, like when I watch a movie, I like to break the storyline down in my head. When I read a book, I'm like, okay, this is this section, this is that section, this is how it could be better. I can tell if a book is going to be good from the first chapter. I can tell. Even from the synopsis itself, I can already tell if the story is going to be good. And if the story doesn't have spiciness in it, that's a personal preference anyway. So that's who I is, right? And then there's all this many English that I wrote. I need to update this thing because I don't work at FCMB anymore. Anyway, so I manage a group of over 1,005-ish graphic designers. I conduct trainings for them and all of that. So this is, I'm sure they'll share this slide for people so people can read all this many English, right? I'm just here to pick a few points and then explain. So yeah. First of all, go down low. The ability to weave stories is not like learning Photoshop or Figma or any software that you use. It is not the same, right? Because normally they will say, oh, use pen tool and you will curve it like this and you will cut it like this and you will remove the image from the background. Sure, see you. Cool. Anyway, moving on. So it's not the same as learning Figma and all those other many graphic design tools, right? It's something that as you grow, you learn, you apply, new things are coming forward, you learn, you apply, right? So even if you're the kind of person that writes a particular type of genre, as time goes on, you begin to realize that okay, social media is coming, is now here. A few decades ago, there was nothing like social media when people were writing, right? So how do you write about social media, back then versus now that social media is here? So all of these things are part of what you learn along the way. And majority of the time, sometimes you see that, okay, let's take it for instance, you're the kind of person that likes to read a Nora Roberts novel. But you agree with me that there are some Robot novels that you will pick up, and they are not very Nora robot-ish, right? Because you begin to ask yourself, okay, who wrote who wrote this thing? Because auntie, you're not the one that wrote this thing, because we know I used to write sweet something before. But this one is like, hey, you are not in your A game. Sure, you understand? So it happens to everybody, right? That's why they usually have like a team of people to go over these things, review, check it, proofread, go over the storyline. They will come and have many meetings and all of that. So that's what happens with being a writer. So we're going to start off with the structure of a story, right? I made it very, very basic. I didn't want to complicate stuff with my slide. So first things first is the character. Who then be? Who is she, they, it, him, whoever, right? You could be writing about a person, you could be writing about a situation, you could be writing about an object. I can write a story about my laptop as if it's a living thing. That kind of thing, right? Just that's the character. A story cannot exist without a character. No matter what it is, it cannot exist without a character, right? Another thing you want to consider with the character is what kind of background did they come from? You will agree with me that somebody, take for instance, like in Lagos, someone that grew up in Mushin, and somebody that grew up in, let's say, Aja. When you want to write a story about them, you have like different things to write about them. You will see how where they grew up actually affected them. Yeah. If they grew up in poverty or they grew up in affluence, it affects them as they grow. As your character development, as you write about them, you begin to see how their background has affected them, right? So yeah, did it affect their character? What kind of person are they? Sometimes you find some stories you read, you see that the person that is from Aja is the person that is Oreo. The person here is not correct. But you see that one that came from Mushin, somehow, maybe because of the kind of background they came from, the parents they might be poor, but they are rich in integrity. So they press that child head very well. If there's anything I would do in this life is to make sure that this Mushin does not affect you in a negative way. You might not have money, but you have sense. Do you understand? So all of those things kind of affect how the character builds. So what do they look like? What does Wasiu? When you hear the word Wasiu, what does Wasiu look like? When you hear Wasiu, you would think, oh, first of all, Wasiu is a mechanic. He's wearing white shirt that was white 2 years ago, but now we are not sure the color again. So they have pash everywhere. Wasiu is Gorimakpa head, right? Wasiu is tall, low, and is dark because he has been cooked under the sun. When he was working as mechanic, the sun has baked Wasiu's skin. So Wasiu is black as night. So you understand? So that's what Wasiu looks like. But what does Richard look like? Richard is in a suit too. What are they calling that airports that they used to do Third Milan Bridge on this place like this? Then they will now fade it up. That thing, and you understand? Because I don't know this time. So that's what Richard looks like. His chocolate in complexion. All those many English that they used to. Yeah, I would choose a Wasiu over Richard because Richard they didn't have sense too much. But anyway, that's my personal preference. Was that for me?
Please go on. We had someone who was just coming to disturb us. Please go on.
Okay. Where he thought it was party, so now we use time and block the person. Just
Yes,
Can I
please go
continue?
on.
Okay. Can he be blocked?
I have done that. I don't know why he's still having access.
Okay. All right. So this character, it can be a real person, it can be fictional, it can be an object, it can be an animal, it can be anything really. You can write about your cat, you can write about your dog, you can write about anybody. Sure, you understand? That's just what it is. I will knock this person head, lie. Okay. So the next the next part of this story structure for me is the hook, right? I call it like this secret, the spice in it, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be a secret per se. Somebody thing does not necessarily have to, be a secret, right? It could be just an idea, something that makes people.
Yo,
Uh,
please just hold on a bit, Ada.
yeah,
I'll have
please.
to give you like host access so that nobody else can unmute themselves. I'm sorry about this.
Okay.
Yeah, Ada, please try unmuting yourself now.
Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Thank
So,
you.
bad boys
Maybe the
know we are
person is
inside
from.
one this thing. They do that a lot. I don't know. People that thrive on entering meetings and disrupting it. And then you go on TikTok and you see that they've posted it there that, oh, look at me trolling a meeting. Well, you're anybody. You're the one that have your patience. Well, you need to shook your eyes since anyway. So, I'm trying to join the meeting on my mobile device, but it's acting like I did something wrong.
Yeah, just go on. Don't worry.
Yeah, okay. All right. So like I said, the hook doesn't necessarily have to be a secret. It could be an idea that is very intriguing. Like at the beginning of the story, maybe two people are chatting, and then so maybe somebody says something that is very, or let's say it's a guy, he's talking to a girl, and the guy says, I don't want to be in a relationship now because of my past. And the girl is like, okay, what's this thing about your past? What's wrong with your past? And then the guy is like, oh, my father did something terrible. And then the guy's like, okay, can you share that with me? And like, don't worry, I'll do that later. So that's something I'll be like, oh, me, I want to know what that father did. I will read the story until I know what the father did. So that's something that keeps you going, that keeps you intrigued that, okay, what's going to happen next? And then maybe as time goes on, you begin to see that, okay, there's a relationship somehow, there's a tie somewhere between this guy's father and this girl's father. In the background somewhere, somehow, maybe they work together. One person scammed the other person, took his company, and now this guy and his family is in abject poverty, while this one is living large, and they met somehow maybe in school or something, and then later you find out this unnerving secret. Like that's the hook. That's something that is making you be like, okay, let me just read just one more page. This what happened, just one more page. Before you know it, you have reached in epilogue. So that's the intrigue. Usually, it's best, like I said, this is my personal opinion now, it's best to put it, at least a hint of it, somewhere in the beginning of your story. That's what I think. I think it's best to put it somewhere in the beginning of your story so that people have something that they are anticipating as time goes on. People have something that keeps them tied to the story, that keeps them intrigued. Okay, so sorry, did you give me host access? Because I'm receiving admitting something.
Yes, that's the disadvantage, though. But I'm sorry about that. We are just gonna
So
have
I have to
to.
admit them.
No, don't worry about that. There are other people that will do that in the background. So just continue.
Oh, okay, fantastic. So like I said, it's usually best to have like a hint of the hook in the beginning of the story so that people actually stay to the very end. They are able to kind of like follow so that they can see what happens. Because one of the great things about about some stories, if you agree with me, is the fact that there's the people they latch onto your curiosity. People are naturally curious. They want to see like what's happening there, what's going on there, and what is the story behind this. The only place that maybe I've seen that maybe curiosity differs from culture to culture is when it involves maybe going to one evil forest, or maybe somebody is making noise in the middle of the night outside your house and you want to go and check. That one is a white people something. It's not about one something. So I'm going to focus on what we used to do. So you can have as many you can have as many hooks as you want, but make sure that it ties to the story. right? Imagine if that, like that example I used now. Imagine if this guy, his father did one thing in the past, and maybe as the story progresses, there's no hints, there's no referring back or even explaining what that means. As time goes on, you begin to lose interest. Like, okay, this thing that I've been anticipating, where is it? So you understand. So that's your hook. Now, conflict, right? Conflict is that thing that clashes, that causes pain, that causes pleasure, that causes happiness, right? Conflict is that thing that, let me just use the word clash. In this example that I have given now, this girl and this guy, you know, let me use that example to explain what I mean by conflict. Conflict will now be, what's that thing that happened between the girl's father and the guy's father in the past? What's that thing that is happening between the girl and the guy now? That's conflict. Conflict in storytelling does not necessarily have to be a bad thing, right? It could be something that involves happiness, something that involves being ecstatic. Maybe the guy got admission into maybe a big university or something, and somebody's trying to stop him from going there. That's the hook, right? And then along the way, maybe the girl got her father to intervene, but the father does not know that this guy is the son to this arch enemy, and then he intervenes. Those are conflicts, right? That happen between the main character and maybe the sub character or the people, the characters in that story. That's the conflict. So how does it unfold in your story? How does it start? How does it, unfold, basically, right? Now, what are the consequences of it unfolding? Now, this example that I've used, right? This man now has helped his arch enemy that he didn't know that was his son. He has helped the guy to get into the university or maybe get a job, a big job or something. And then that's the conflict. And then maybe along the way, he now finds out, right? So how does it unfold? What is the consequence of that conflict, of the guy's happiness getting that job or getting into the university or something? How does it unfold? And how does it now tie back to the story in general? So all of that, I'm going to like give you like step by step later on, how to go about all of these things. So yeah. Next slide, yo. Another thing about the structure of a story is the perspective of the story. And this is something that you have to consider actually at the beginning, before you even start writing at all. This is something you have to consider at the beginning of your story, right? There are three perspectives in story writing. You are a storytelling, story writing. There is the first person perspective, there's the second person point of view, and there's the third person point of view. The first person point of view is speaking from my perspective as a person, as an individual. I'm the first person. So I'm telling you that I stood up this morning and I stepped outside my house and there was a big calabash outside my door. But there was a time that I saw my neighbor, who is fair in complexion, staring at me with the side of her eyes. Now I'm here thinking, hey, is she trying to juju me? Or is she not trying to juju me? Is she the one that put the juju there? Or is not she the one that put the juju there? That's me. That's from my perspective. Second person point of view can be you. I'm talking about you, right? So I'm saying you are going to the market, you are doing this, you are doing that, you are. I hope I'm making sense. The third person point of view is what they call the omniscience point of view. It's almost like now God, now they talk. That's the narrator. So this narrator knows everything about you. He knows everything about your background, your future, he knows everything. So he's able to narrate what is going. So when he's speaking, when he or she is speaking, is speaking from a know-it-all perspective. So it's like he instead of saying I stepped outside my door now, this person is good, this perspective is going to be like, Ada woke up this morning and she stepped outside her door. And then she found this big calabash sitting in front of it. And now she's wondering, was it her neighbor who is fair in complexion that wants to juju her or not juju her? Yeah. Moving on. next part of the structure of a story, in my opinion, this one is purely my opinion. Nobody should go and quote me anywhere. If I've quoted me, I don't even care. This is what I call the piece de resistance. That's the is the something, the spice, the sweet something in the middle of a story, right? And this is what this is like how I see it. This is how the best way that I can explain it is that thing that ties, like, let's say you have interesting. Can you guys see my video? Because that's why I put my video on, so that you can see all my weary, all my character, all my demonstrations, because I'm about to demonstrate now. Is that okay?
Yes, you can see your video.
Fantastic. Okay, so now there is interesting story at the beginning, right? It starts from interesting story, and then you're like, normal story. And he went to the market, and then you drop the piece de resistance somewhere in the middle there that keeps people interested. Now, what makes this fantastic is that there's contrast of idea in it. Are you feeling? Okay, so there's a contrast of idea in it, and I put an example here that I hope everybody is over 18, anyway. So this resistance is you can deviate from the norm by saying something witty or something that has interesting contrast, right? You can also have your characters express themselves in an unconventional way, right? Take for instance now that Richard from Aja. Imagine if he says something that is uncharacteristic to people in Aja. Imagine if he says something that is mostly heard from people in Mushin. That's something that makes you be like, this guy, there's something spectacularly spectacular about him. There's something different about him. Or he's talking to his friend and he starts to speak pidgin. It's somewhere in the middle, even if it's bad pidgin, right? So you're like, normally these kind of characters would not speak pidgin, but now you see one speaking pidgin. So it's sweet in your chest, and you're like, okay, let me see what's going on here. And a good example for me is, I think you can read what I wrote there, because I'm not going to say it out loud. So yeah, that's a nice contrast. Now I'm going to move on to the next something without saying what is in my mind. I hope you can read this slide as well. So they will give you people slide later. I cannot be saying it. No, it's not Muslim or Mushin, oh, please, oh. God, I beg. Hey, please, oh. Want to be alive. Anyway, so right. So we are moving on to the actual how of writing a story. So we have talked about all of this structure, right? Now, how do you actually write a story? Like, I'm a novice. I don't know story in my life. Now, if I want to put pen to paper, how do I start? How do I continue? How do I finish? Next slide. We start with something called the synopsis, right? Your synopsis is the skeletal structure of an entire story, right? It has just key points or some keywords that will make up your storyline. Now, synopsis can be in two forms, in my opinion, right? There's the actual synopsis that goes out into the market, and there's the synopsis that guides your writing. First one is this one I wrote. This one I wrote here now is the synopsis that goes out into the market that says, Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his head, and Jill came tumbling after. So you have a lot of questions in your head, like, why are they going up the hill to fetch water? Is there a well there? When he fell down, what's making to fall down? He said he broke it. How? Well, what happened? There are questions in your mind now, right? This is the market synopsis. Now, the synopsis for your own personal use, they are like lines of the breakdown of how the storyline is going to be. Take for instance, number one can be number one, Richard and Adam meets at the market. Number two, Richard goes home and begins to cry because he remembers how he hurt her in university or something like that. So you have all of those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, up to whatever number, right? So it's a breakdown of how your storyline is going to be. Then when you now want to write the story, you cannot begin with, oh, okay, so when they met at the market, how did it start? Whose person's point of view are you starting from? Do you want to talk from Richard's point of view and say, oh, Richard woke up this morning feeling ecstatic. It was a beautiful Saturday afternoon or Saturday morning with a sprinkle of rain or something. Sure, you understand? And then he was like, oh, today I'm gonna go to the market. It's uncharacteristics of me because I'm an Aja boy and I'm a rich boy. But somehow, in this story that I fabricated, I'm going to go to the market. And then he goes to the market and he's like, oh, who is this back girl? I'm seeing some big booty. I'm seeing some big booty. And then the booty turns, and then it's Ada. And then his heart begins to palpitate, begins to beat outside of his chest, up and down, like, is it not this girl that I maybe raped? I don't know, in university. Sure, you understand? It's not this girl that I raped in the university, but she doesn't know. And then and she was like, Richard, is that you? And then your conscience is chopping you. I've entered into full story. I'm sorry. Moving on. Jesus. Okay. Yeah, Jack and Jill went up the hill to fetch a pail of water. Jack fell down and broke his head, and Jill came tumbling after. Right? So don't ask me anything. Don't ask me anything. Exactly, that getting dark is what makes the story interesting. So yeah, the next part is flesh, blood, and gore. So you've written these storylines 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and all of that. You've written this breakdown of this synopsis, breakdown of your storyline. Now you now begin to take each of them like I just did and begin to break and begin to write about them, to form the entire story, right? After the synopsis comes the first draft. Now you begin to flesh out the storyline and the situations hidden in your synopsis, like I just did. Now I wrote this as a breakdown of this synopsis that I wrote as an example, right? So I just fleshed out the story. All of us know Jack and Jill now as a nursery rhyme, right? So I took the story of Jack and Jill and I wrote a horror story out of it. So you understand? So I'm going to read it out to you. I know that some of us are faster readers, but bear with me. He dodged the skillet okay. He dodged the skillet aimed at his head for the 5th time this month. Jill was mad about something again. Big surprise, I look forward to the day you will grow an actual set of balls and act like a man around here. Her insults, as usual, cut him deeper than the wood axe did this morning. His thigh hurt like crazy and he had lost a lot of blood. But Jack would rather eat the axe than share it with Jill. That would just make matters worse. To appease the witch of the West he married, he grabbed the nearest pail, wolfed down the stew Jill had mercifully made for him, and took off up the hill to the community well. Now begin to see where the well is. Okay, let me just read the entire story. Later we can begin to analyze. So maybe if I fetch enough water, I can drown her and finally be free, he said, and chuckled to himself while he pulled the water up the well. And that right this thing well. Sorry. Don't worry, you guys will get the slides and then you can go over it again. The bucket is just one. The bucket was finally full. Wait, Jesus. I'm sorry, I'm out of it today. I'm the one that wrote the story. The buckets were finally full. Wait, buckets? Did I bring more than one? Oh, they are 3 now. 4, 5. The world suddenly looked blurry and tumbled around him. Jack's body rolled down the hill like a tire. A loud crack broke the silence of the sunny hill when Jack's head made an unfriendly collision with a rock. As precious life seeped out of his skull, he could swear he saw Jill coming down the hill with a bucket. How come? When did she get up there? She is walking towards me. Why is she smiling? And there you go. That's the end of my story. And I begin to wonder, what happened here? What's the going on in this place? Did I pay Jill have killed her husband, you understand? Now from this story, you can begin to see where things reached a peak. That's where your climax is. Now, when you are writing a story, you've written your synopsis, you've written like the breakdown of you began to write out and flesh out your synopsis, right? Now there has to be a point in your story where things will get to a particular point where the emotions will be boiling like hot beans. No, not beans. Beans does not boil like that. Stew. Yoruba stew that have pepper. When it begin to boil at the highest point. So that's your climax, right? The part where your heart begins to beat a whole lot faster. The part where you hold your breath and be like, okay, what's going to happen next? That's your climax, right? And now in this story, for me, the climax was when his eye got blurry and he fell down the hill. So you're like, what happened? This gentle boy? Sure, you understand? Yeah, that's where your climax is. Now, after climax, somewhere in your storyline, you need to have your resolution, right? Your resolution is basically where people begin to have that, oh, that's what happened. Aha, I thought so too. That's where your resolution is, right? It's a gradual movement from climax, like this secret, this thing that's going on. We don't know what's happening. I'm confused, right? But I'm intrigued. And then the story begins to break down and you begin to understand, this is what happened. Like how you begin to code in this example now that and Jill must have poisoned that stew we heard about earlier. Jill must have. This Jill the Chris, and she poisoned that stew. So you understand? That's where your internal questions begin to now receive answers. That's your resolution, right? Resolution does not necessarily have to come at the end, but it has to come after a climax. Sometimes in some stories, some people put their resolution before the climax. So they already see everything that's going to happen and then it happens, right? But that's not a very interesting story now, is it? That you've already read everything that's going to happen, and you now see it happening, you're like, well, I saw it coming, okay, you understand. The last part of the story is what they call the conclusion. I call it the happily ever after moment, right? Where everything now becomes clear and maybe the two characters or something that deserve happiness in your mind finally receive it. All their obstacles leave the way. The father that was adamant that you must not marry my daughter finally says, you know what, go ahead and live your life. The mother that was like, leave my son alone, finally says, you know what, you deserve happiness, go ahead. Sure, you understand. That's your conclusion, right? That's where the story ends. Now, there are some stories that will not give you that peace of mind. They'll be like, oh, you want to have peace? Psych, and have the peace today. You will think about the story till you die. Because there's a particular movie I watched a few years ago. Wallahi, it's still in my head. It's still in my head because there was no resolution. There was no conclusion. There was resolution, right? I understood what happened, but there was no conclusion. They didn't conclude it. They didn't give the guy happiness, right? As I expected. And it's still paying me. So let's go to your guide. Let's go to your guide. So how, like, what are the principles that I can share with you from my experience on how you can write a story? So all the things that I've shared with you now is how you can actually put pen to paper and begin to write a story. So you start with let me just recap. You start with your synopsis, like, the general idea, the big picture of what the story is about. You don't have to go into details, right? Just the big picture. That's one for the market. And then the second one is your own that you will use to flesh out your storyline. The next part is your flesh, blood, and gore. Like, okay, what happened with this first storyline? What happened with the second one? What happened? And how does it tie into each other all the way to the end? And then there's resolution, climax. Climax is like, oh, that height of feelings and emotions, right? It could be pain, it could be pleasure, it could be happiness, it could be sadness, it could be anything. Your climax can be anything, but the climax is usually packed with a lot of confusion, a lot of emotions, whether bad or good, right? Then you have your resolution where you begin to understand, that's what happened. Eh, oh. And then you have your conclusion where everybody begins to have happiness, which is boring in my opinion, but somehow that's the only story I can read because I don't want to cry for people that don't even exist. So anyway, my guide that I can give to you, right? Principles that can guide your next story. Keep it as close to real as possible. Even if it is a fictional story, make it relatable, right? Take for instance, you're writing for people in Lagos, and maybe the title of your what's the name now? Or your story is Lagos Madness, and you now begin to write in a way, or maybe begin to add slangs from Scotland people, Scottish people. So there's a kind of disconnect there. When you're writing for people in Lagos, you need to add like all those keywords, slangs, idiosyncrasies, the way people in Lagos think. People, like, take for instance, now you're writing a story and your character is waking up, let's say your serious character is waking up by 10 a.m. to go to work. In which Lagos they have traffic. So your character will have to wake up by like 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. and then begin to prepare, and then you mention something like traffic. But if you're writing for people in somewhere like maybe Abuja or Ibadan or something, you might not necessarily include that traffic part because it's not part of their ecosystem. So those are the things that you need to consider while you're writing your story. Let me just quickly go over all the rest. Make the pain and pleasure very, very obvious. So let's not be subtle, right? Because it ties to my next point, which is emotionally charged stories do better than every other kind of story. Stories that are packed with emotions, good, bad, it doesn't matter. No matter how disgusting that emotion is, there are some things that are really disgusting in this world, right? Maybe like mass murder or something that you want to be part of your story. Let it be filled with emotions like that. It does better, in my opinion, right? And then all the details must be relevant to your story in some way or the other. Now, I think I mentioned something about Richard and Ada in a story, and he went to the market and he saw somebody with a big bottom and was like, "Oh, this bottom is spicy, it's drawing me, it's calling me," right? And then the girl turns around and he says, "Oh, it's her." So what was the relevance of you showing us the bottom? Number one, it was to show that, oh, something drew Richard's attention. And it's probably going to reflect back later when you now say Richard has always admired that bottom in secondary school. And it was too much for him to hold on at some point, that he had to give in to his animalistic something, and he forced her that and raped her. You understand? So all the details of your story has to tie into the story somehow. If the detail you're putting there, maybe like there's a tortoise, or maybe there's a bag or something, if it does not tie somehow to the story, remove it. There's no need, because readers always question why something is where it is. So it has to make sense to them, right? Those are the principles that I can give that would help you maybe make your story a little more interesting and more compelling, more readable, intriguing to people, right? And then these are the books that I think would also help you. The Storytelling Animal by Jonathan Gottschall. All marketers are liars, underscore clean tell stories, right? By Seth Godin, right? For those people that are not just writing story for the sake of writing a story, but they actually want to write stories in relation to marketing, right? This is a good book for you. Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott is also a good book for you to read, to learn how to write and all of that. I have classwork for you. How many people? There's 38 plus people that are here. I have classwork for you. Now, you don't necessarily have to submit it here and now, because you have like 15 minutes left. And I want to try and use those 15 minutes to answer all your questions in details. So yeah, if this is your classwork, you can submit it at any point in time. If you want to, send it to my DM, tag me, post it somewhere, tag me, whatever, you're free, right? But I have given you people assignments, is what I know. Write a short story, a short love story about yourself and your laptop. That's the classwork. Write a short love story about yourself and your laptop. Right. So yeah, that's your classwork or homework. Sorry, because I cannot review it here. Now, if you have questions, you have comments, you have some observations you want to share, you want to swear for me, you want to stone me, this is a very good time to do so. Maybe you want to type it in the chats feature, because I can see some questions there already, or you want to maybe put on your mic and say it or something. But while we're waiting for people to decide on, which they want to do, let me just quickly answer Abdul Babatunde. Can you add more synopsis while already hold on please, while already on it? If an idea pops into your head, if an idea just pop up in your head, or will it, this thing is blocking, or will it disorganize your story? Okay, so the thing about story writing is this: your storyline can change at any time. As you are writing it, in fact, you can get to the end and you will now decide that Rachel did not rape Ada. And then you go back and rewrite and change the entire structure of your story. So yes, your story can change at any time, no matter what part of the story it is. Sure, you understand? So yeah, you can definitely change. If an idea pops into your head, go ahead. That's why it's a story. You're not affecting people that writers, especially new writers, they like to restrict themselves by how they write. And that's because they are writing in a way that makes them feel like the characters are real. So they try not to obstruct the characters' life too much, or they obstruct the characters' life to an extreme, thinking that that's what's going to make the story more interesting. But that's not true, right? There has to be a balance somewhere. Now, when I write stories, I try to make the protagonist, that's the good guy or the good girl, I try to make them sing at least once in my story, do something bad at least once in my story. And the reason is because we are all human beings. We are fallible. Everybody makes mistakes, right? So I don't want my characters to, personally, I don't want my characters to be saints, to be put on one pedestal like, John can never do no wrong. Bitch, John can do wrong. John can turn from a good boy today and massacre people tomorrow. That's a story. Do you understand? So that's just it. Now, thank you for the session, Adaeze. How does piece de resistance differ from the hook? Now, piece de resistance is a thread that ties something together, right? I don't know whether if you grew up in Nigeria, all those, when you pack a rubber band, I have rubber band here, this rubber band, and you tie it together. Let me see whether I can see another rubber band. I only have one. What happened to my rubber band in this place? I've seen another one. So you have these two dialogues, right? And or you have like several dialogues, and you want to tie it together. And this is how we used to tie rubber band in that year. So we'll tie it this way. This knot in the middle is the piece de resistance. Is what ties this dialogue to this dialogue in terms of intrigue, making it interesting. Interesting dialogue, maybe interesting idea is what ties it together, right? But the hook is an entire idea that can stem from the very beginning to the end. So let me give you an example so that it's very relatable for you and you're able to understand. The hook in the story with Ada and Richard, that you say, oh, he raped her in school and then he met her again, and she didn't know who raped her back then, but so he now began to know her, and somewhere along the line fell in love with her or something, and then as time goes on, he began to see signs that, okay, it feels like this girl is not in love with me as well. But that was not the case when he pinned her down and asked her, like, what is going on? Do you want me or do you not want me? And then, she began to explain that, look, I have a very terrible past. I actually have a son. right? I have a son, and I gave birth to him back then in secondary school, from an incident that happened to me. There's a guy, and then she begins to cry. There's a guy that raped me, yada, yada, yada. That's your hook. And you begin to see how it unfolded from the beginning up to this point. Like, oh, interesting. Sure, you understand? But your piece de resistance is maybe somewhere in Richard's dialogue. There is something that he said that was very, very interesting, that had like good contrast of ideas in it. Just that dialogue, just a tiny little piece. So you understand? So your piece of resistance can be meat inside soup, while your hook is like the entire soup. I hope I made justice. I did justice to that. I'm not sure. Oluwa Busayomi, maybe you can let me know if you understand or if I need to go over that again. Please, can I get the slides? Oh yeah. Let Osas know. Osas is going to share. Maybe you can share your. I don't know how you want to do it, Osas.
Don't worry about that. So we have Dami. Dami Lola has his hands up.
Okay, please go ahead.
Yeah, Dami, you can unmute yourself and just ask your question.
Okay, good evening, ma. I really appreciate your
My
effort.
name is
Yeah,
Adana.
thank you so
My name is Ada.
much. Okay, Mrs. Ada. Okay, I'm actually a writer and I do write, but I have this challenge in combining writing with and also a designer as well. In
Okay.
fact, I love to write a lot, so I find it difficult to to write and also put them on Instagram. So I don't know, maybe you
Sorry,
have
hold on. Write and do
any
what?
I mean, I do design and I'm also a writer and I
Okay.
write a lot, but I find it difficult to put my writing on Instagram, especially more or less like putting it in carousel. So I'm always afraid maybe people will read it or not, or maybe it's not in alignment with my audience on Instagram. So I don't know, maybe you have anything or any material that can be an of help.
Okay, so if I heard you correctly, you write, but you're not sure how you can put it in carousels.
Yeah, exactly, man.
Okay, so here's the thing. There's this lady that does it. Hawa. I don't know whether you know Hawa. You know Hawa. You know Hawa. Okay. So anyway,
I'll check out.
okay, so I'll try and search for. I don't know. I can't remember her handle, but she does this carousel thing, and she's more of a comedic writer. So she writes her stories and then she puts them in carousels. But I find that if your story is long, and this is why I say put like a hint of your hook at the beginning of your story, so that people are able to still be intrigued by it. Say, take for instance, now you've written a story that is too um what's the word now? That is like 2 pages long. How do you put it in a carousel? It's too much. So you understand? So what you can maybe try to do is to have it in a blog, right? And then maybe like the first 2 or 3 paragraphs, put it in a carousel. And then at the end of it, you can say click the link in bio to read the rest of the story. That's how you can do it. So you understand? Another thing that you might want to consider while you're doing this is to make sure that your hook, because I think it's part of what I mentioned as well. Let me see whether it's included in this thing. Okay, look at this. Your headline could also be a great hook. Exactly. So one of the things that draws people's attention when it comes to what you write, especially on social media, is your headline. When you hear headlines like "the girls are not to blame," what did the girls do now? Oh, secrets of the sun. Which time the sun start having secrets? And my personal I wrote a story once that's called "Balls Deep in Trouble," like balls deep in trouble, right? And then the story is about a guy that goes out to the club and then he's having a good time in the club, and he was like, I'm going to pick up a babe today. And then he sees this girl that is voluptuous, and then he takes her home, and they get busy. And along the line of getting busy, he opens the Pandora box, and then he sees that the content of the Pandora box is the same with his content, but her content was bigger than his content. Do you understand? So I didn't write it that way, but I think begin to get the idea. That's my synopsis now. Do you understand? That's my synopsis. So when you read the synopsis and then you see the headline, "Balls Deep in Trouble," and like, what is going on here? What's happening? What's this thing that is going on? What are you trying to say? And it intrigues you, and you want to hear what is happening. You want to read the story like, and instead people that like 18 plus things, they will like that kind of story. Sure, you understand? So yeah, that's how you can do it. You can, have your synopsis as your caption, have a fantastic, attractive headline. People should stop laughing. Have an attractive headline, and then maybe you can write like the first 2 or 3 paragraphs of the story as a carousel. I think somebody else's hand was raised up. I don't know if that answers your question, Damilola.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Right.
Okay, so hi Ada. I wanted to ask.
I like talking to girls, yeah.
I wanted to ask how to relate storytelling with writing case studies. You mentioned a series of elements of a story, the hook, the character, and a lot of other things. How much of those things are needed in a case study? Because like sometimes case studies get, I don't know, should I say technical? I don't know, not technical, but something like that. Like how do you tell interesting stories in your case study?
Okay, so I think they are not much different from each other, in my opinion. Right now, please note that I do not write case studies, so I'm not necessarily the best person to ask, right? But if you give me an idea of who your target audience is supposed to be, I can weave an emotional story around your target audience in a way that makes it necessary for you to have this product out in the market, which I guess is the case study. Like, okay, why does this product need to go out into the market? I'm not necessarily aware of what the case study is like the nitty-gritty of what the case study is, but I'm guessing is like a showcase of who needs this product and why they need it. So you understand? So let's say let's say in that my story about Richard and Ada, right? And then you have Ada is struggling to accept the fact that this has happened to her. She's depressed, she's tired, and maybe somewhere along the way, you've already heard that story of how she was raped. This is from her own perspective now, not Richard's perspective. So in this story, Richard does not go to the market or something. We're looking at it from her perspective. They're saying, Ada was raped in school, and then she got pregnant with the rape, and then along the way she gave birth to this child. It affected all her life. It ruined her life basically, right? And now she's in a place where she's contemplating suicide. But she was scrolling through social media looking for the best way to go about this suicide mission. She stumbles on an app where victims of rape and abuse share their stories. And then she began to read other people's stories and began to see worse scenarios than her own. And then she began to calm down that, look, okay, if this person had it like this, maybe somebody shared the story of how she was raped by her own father or something. If this person has it like this and mine is kind of somewhat easier, I can calm down, right? And then maybe the app you're writing is for that app. The app you're writing, you're designing. I don't know whether that works as a case study. Like I said, I'm not necessarily the best person to ask, what to write or what to put in a case study. So you understand? But that's me. That's me writing about a product and weaving a story around the character that needs that product. And then you maybe can even add statistics to it that 20 million people in Lagos alone suffer rape and abuse, and they need a platform where they can come together and talk about it. And we also want to include a place where they can click and get a therapist, and the therapists are divided by gender in case someone that is a rape victim and she's female wants a female therapist, or someone that is a rape victim that is a male wants a male therapist, that's how you now begin to break where and where they can go in the product, and how the product generally helps them, come back to a normal state of mind. I hope that makes sense. God, I beg.
It does, thanks.
It does? Okay. Yeah, now. So, man, how do you come up with a good caption for your carousel? For my own carousels, what do you know me? Sometimes I don't used to put caption, no, but I know that the headline, I always make sure that I put effort into the headline, because I know that that's the first thing people read. So when people read something like, I've got like one of my carousels that did really well to show me on them Instagram, that says, I've got beef for you. Beef on a normal sense is like, say, I dey fight with you. Sure, you understand? I dey beef you, boss, right? But when you now read, I've got beef for you, I'm like, what did I do, ma? And then you now begin to swipe, and then you see that, oh, she means BEEF as an acronym for something design related. You now begin to enjoy yourself. So I put effort into my headline, not necessarily my caption. I'm looking at my phone and not my laptop. Sorry. Questions, questions, questions.
I also want to mention that I dropped like in the chats, added like social media links, so you can also continue the conversation online. And if you have questions, you can also share them there. Also added a feedback form so that you can just leave feedback about this session, so that we can even make other sessions better. But yeah, something to note as well is not just questions. You can also give your comments and observations and any other thing that you think can contribute. Like, okay, your own experience with this, how have you applied this to your own niche, right? We're talking about storytelling, and we have different applications for it. So you feel free as well to share your own experience. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, that's basically all there is to, what I have to share tonight. But something I want to leave with you, if you have your story, your questions, please, you're still free to ask. Or I'm just giving like my closing speech. One thing I want to leave with you is, when you're writing a story, don't be scared. Don't be scared to rubbish the life of the character. Don't be scared to even inject your own experience into it. Don't be scared to go all out, or even keep it, simple, right? And when in doubt, leave the story and come back later, because you will see many, many mistakes. Keep the story, come back later. Maybe go and read a book or something about another person's story somehow makes a difference with your own that you're trying to write, right? So yeah, take all of those into cognizance, and I'm sure, And another thing, practice, 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 practice. So at least now you have a place to start. That story about yourself and your laptop, write a story, write a short story, a short love story about yourself and your laptop. If you don't have the laptop, maybe use your phone. Love story. How did you and this laptop meet? I'm giving you like storyline now, like synopsis, breakdown, storyline, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. How did you and this your laptop meet? What drew you to her or him? What drew you to this laptop? What was the attractive? What was the attraction? Right? Oh, he has Intel Core 70 something. Oh, that was sexy. Oh, he has a black case. Oh my God. Oh, Totori. He has 17-inch screen. Oh, 17 inches. Sure, you understand. So all of that things that probably attracted you to your laptop, right? So now when you met this laptop, you were shy. Okay, what was your first conversation with your laptop? What was the first thing you did with your laptop? And when I say what first thing you did, okay, let me keep it normal. What unfolded after that? What was the first sickness your laptop had? What were you feeling at that point? What happened? How did you get it resolved? Were you worried? How much money did you spend? Oh, because you had to go all out, to make sure your laptop was well. And then what was, how did the laptop get well? Did the laptop die? Because love stories too can be tragic. The laptop died, and then you had to cheat on the memories you had with that laptop by getting another laptop. Like those people that were using Windows and having the time of their life, like Osas, and then betrayed his Windows laptop and got a MacBook. And now he cannot use Windows again. He betrayed the memories he had with his Windows laptop and got a MacBook. If I was the Windows, I would have cried. So you understand. So write a love story about yourself and your laptop. If you don't have a laptop, write a love story about yourself and your phone, right? And make it super interesting. Post it anywhere, tag me. My name is Adaeze on most platforms, or you can search for CAV or CAV Digital. Find me there, tag me, I'll review it for you.
All right, John has his hands up.
Yeah, I have my hand up. Can you please tell us the story? I think everyone's waiting for that. You and your laptop, please. How did you meet your laptop? Does he or she have 17 inches? So we want to know.
You will wait after. We don't be post credit scene.
Yes, now post credits. You can end the recording. It's over now. Everyone had fun. Had lots of fun.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
did.
it can be in thousand. It can be in
Thank
thousand.
you guys for thank you for this, for this opportunity. I'm always happy to teach. I'm always happy to share my knowledge. I find it interesting, and I try as much as I can to make it interesting for those people that are listening to me, because for me, teaching is more than just telling you what to do or share my knowledge with you. I want to share it in a way that is memorable for you, that even 2 months from now, you are still able to remember what you learned. So I'm always happy to teach. I'm always happy to share my knowledge, and it's great being part of Asha community, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for accepting to do this. I just wanted to even share because recently I started working on my portfolio again, and honestly, just looking at this, I started just seeing, okay, these are interesting places to really just hold on to what you said. I mean, when you're talking about the headline, I'm like, okay, so if I'm doing a case study, rather than just write the name of the app I'm building, say, okay, so app, you can actually talk about, oh, this is what I was trying to do,
Yeah.
something for
Yeah.
this.
Yeah. Okay, so let me give you an example. So instead of saying case study for maybe let's say an app for drunkards that they can use to call a cab or something, right? So instead of saying a case study for drunk app, let's say it's drunk app, say getting out of the gutter or falling into the gutter, or getting something that makes it interesting enough for somebody to say, okay, what exactly am I seeing here? And then when they begin to read the case study, they're like, it begins to tie to the headline, and they're like, oh, okay, I see what you did there.
Yeah, and also now you talked about the synopsis, and that's kind of like whether your summary or your background to the story, and people can really just get, okay, why should I read this case study that is looking like this? Okay, that part is where you pretty much sell it. And when you talk about the draft, the first draft is where you kind of, lay it all out. Okay, this is this is my process in my head. I did this, I did this, I did this. I don't know what I'm writing in between just yet, but I know that this is where it started and this is where it ended. And then you talked about the flesh and the gore. That's pretty much putting in the meat. Okay, this was how I did this part. This was how I did this part. This was how I did this part. Conflicts can be maybe problems encountered while I was trying to solve this. That's all those kind of things that make it really interesting. And okay, maybe climax could be, how did I solve that? How did it go? Maybe I'm not really quite sure on that part, but yeah, it could be, how did I go over this? And then a resolution would be, okay, this was where we ended. Did we complete the app? Did we have to pause the project? Did we launch into the market and do something really awesome? So yeah, those are, I like the way you explain it right now. It's just like, okay, yeah. I mean, it's like you kind of know this stuff, but the way you painted it has kind of really just made it even more interesting in my head. And thank you so much for that.
Yeah, good student. Yeah, good student.
All right. Does anyone have any other contributions as well? Feel free. This is the end of our session. So if you have questions or anything, also if you are interested in being part of what we do here, just go on social media, go on Twitter and follow us. There's even some people wrote an article about us, Tech Next. So if you want to understand what exactly do we do here in this community, what's this community about, just check our Twitter. You'll see the link there. So thank you again. Thank you, Adaeze, so much for this. If you haven't filled the feedback form, please go ahead and fill it now. Please, I beg. I don't want to. I've tried to tell you a story around it, but you know, got cast. But yeah, thank you so much, everyone. I really appreciate that. Thank you for coming. Yeah.
You're welcome.